Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. Hope you're having a great day. And as I've been saying recently, the interaction with the show has been great. You look at, we get the opportunity to really check numbers on social media, and the level of engagement of the show is up very dramatically. And I think people are really enjoying this wide range of leaders that we're able to talk with who have made so many different contributions to coastal Mississippi. And you're appreciating that this is a complicated place, 3 coastal counties and all these political subdivisions. And if you want to make something happen in the region, you got to talk to a lot of people. There's a lot of aligning to do. It's complicated in that way. So it takes a lot of people working in the trenches to make this place tick. CEOs and people working in the community and people understanding how important this economic engine is to the rest of the state, how diverse it is, just special. And people enjoy hearing the stories. I'm really pleased today that I have Jonathan Allen from J. Allen Automotive. He also has a company called All Terrain Productions. He's been expanding his business, and it's been quite a while since he and I have talked. He sent me a note recently, and we're going to talk about a specific issue that we're going to talk about at some point in the conversation. But it hit me that we haven't talked in a while, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with Jonathan. So without any further ado, my friend Jonathan Allen. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Happy to be here, Ricky. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
It's good. It's good to see you. Okay, you're barely in your 40s, and you're
41. I'll be 42 in April.
Okay, so you're rocking and rolling and continuing to expand the size of your company, and you're giving back to the community, and you're doing it with a smile. So as we were chatting with Lauren St. Pé before the show started, if you want to get something done, you got to find a busy person to do it. But you obviously become a pretty good manager of your calendar, and you're keeping it all straight. What's your secret to success?
I think I probably said it on your show every time. You cannot do what I'm doing without a great team. And I've got some excellent people that have committed to doing what we're doing and knew the mission and the vision a long time ago. So when opportunities came and the potential to buy the Ford and the Mazda dealership from Butch, we were ready because we had planned and prepared to grow. And we started cultivating leaders a long time ago and growing other leadership. That's the only way that we can keep growing is, now if we want to look at another business, our first question is who's going to run it, who's qualified, and who can we put our full faith in that would operate it the way we would. And I'm talking about my core team now, because we were all individually operators of businesses at some point in time. Like I ran the Toyota dealership one time. But right now, I'm not the point person. I am the owner and the direction maker and that kind of thing. So really, it's all about the team. It's all about the team.
Yeah, it's. I spent a lot of time throughout my career leading strategic efforts for Knight Ridder, second largest newspaper company in the country, 26,000 employees, 32 newspapers across America. Spent a lot of time in each of those newspapers working on various plans along the way. And the thing that became very clear to me, and certainly in terms of observing what I observed and the change efforts that we had underway, doing some acquisition work in the future, some merger and acquisition work as time went on, was the importance of culture. Culture. Really, at the end of the day, man, if your people don't buy into what the core values of the team, a great book that was written called Built to Last, and it's about understanding what are your core values and can they stand the test of time. If Jonathan Allen were to go away today, is there built into the DNA of this diversified company the kind of core values that can help it continue to go forward and literally stand the test of time? That's really important, isn't it?
Oh, you've nailed it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And almost the simpler, the better. So everybody can easily wrap their head around it and become part of that vision. And when they feel part of the vision, that's when teams do great things.
It is. It really is. And then when you go into new companies, look, Butch Ocelot, think about the dynasty of that name, the Ocelot family and the car dealership. You know it well. You came from the Allen family. But, boy, those ties go back a long way, don't they?
They do. They do. Butch is a legend in the industry, and he's known all over the country. I don't know if most of South Mississippi knows that. He's got brand recognition in the car world for sure.
And his dad, Bubba, same thing. And then
Yeah,
his family over in Jennings, and
that's right.
it's very significant. And so you go into a company like that, you want to honor Butch's sort of legacy, but at the same time, you still have to figure out how do I blend the J. Allen Automotive culture into this new company, because you don't want a one-off. You want a company that buys into sort of the core values of the whole thing. So there probably was a good fit there, but anytime you do an acquisition like that, it also involves change. So how's that going?
Well, with the Ford and the Mazda dealerships, car business is car business. We're retailing new vehicles and used vehicles and doing parts and service, and that really doesn't change. The way that the manufacturers behave and act and are very different compared to Toyota versus Ford Motor Company and Mazda being a very much smaller and nimble company right now and looking to grow. They're able to make decisions on the fly. Ford is a very big bureaucratic company with a lot of dealers and not a whole lot of field team, well, not a whole lot of field staff here to help the dealers because there's just so many dealers. Yeah. And, just navigating, getting used to that dynamic where our region for Ford is technically the Memphis region. It goes up to St. Louis, over into Texas. It's a big area. There's 199 dealers in that area, where the region or my area for Toyota is about 27 dealers and covers basically Baton Rouge, South Louisiana and South Mississippi. And that's it. So, we get about the same level of support with 27 to 30 stores as we do with 200 in Ford. So, it's just navigating that and trying to get answers to questions when you need them quickly, knowing that they're run pretty thin right now. Ford is, yeah. but it's still car business on the ground, day to day, every day. Our parts people are still able to order parts from their system and get them in and take care of our customers. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's all retail car business. But
it is an interesting part of this that beyond what happens on the ground at the dealership when you buy something like Ford or Mazda, let's just specifically as it relates to Ford. I remember all of our conversations about Toyota and the responsiveness and all the discussions you guys were having about just-in-time inventory and how when you get out of the pandemic, will it be a little bit of a blend between the way it was and just-in-time and all of that, and you actually felt like you had a voice in having some conversations around that, and then you get something like Ford where it's bigger and the as you pointed out, the region's way bigger. The contrast between Toyota and Ford, at least in terms of what happens behind the curtain, is probably dramatic.
Very dramatic and very big. In the 5-state region I'm in for Toyota is a privately held distributorship. It's the largest private company in Texas. It's called the Friedkin Companies, owns it, and it's called Gulf States Toyota. Well, operating in the confines of a privately held distributor makes them much more nimble to answer to their 150 dealers in 5 whole states, and we're used to that kind of care and attention, and it's okay, but it's just different. Yeah, it's very different.
It's different. You got a lot of experience. You've had leadership roles in the car industry, mm-hmm. and you've heard these conversations are not new to you, though, are they?
No, not at all.
You've watched a lot of that go down for sure. Hey, listen, again, coming back to that point I just made, we were literally in a just-in-time scenario for a good long time. Your margins were better, that's for sure, during that time. Yeah. How would you describe it today? Are you back to where you're having to carry a lot of inventory like you did before, or is it some kind of quasi between the two?
It's not like it was pre-pandemic, normal car business going back many, many years. It's quasi, I would say, because we are getting more inventory and there is more inventory on the ground, which is naturally making, the demand a little less because the supply is higher and people have more options and choices. But it's also not overflowing. Now, every manufacturer is different. Toyota is still doing, I would say, just enough. But they're also, We all value our product, our process in car business by how many extra cars that the manufacturer might be able to give us. And if you're moving it and turning it, they're apt to send you a little bit more. Well, when you know that they offer up that extra more, and some dealers say, nah, I'm okay right now, I don't want the extra, that's when you really know that the markets are slowing down a little bit, or they've got the right amount of inventory that they need for now, and they're a little scared of taking on more because it just ups our costs, and it ups which technically ups everything for everyone. So we'll see what they do. I mean, the Dodge Chrysler Ram stores are have a lot of inventory on the ground right now.
I see that. I don't know. Yeah, I've passed a couple of stores on the coast, and I don't know if they could put another unit on their property. There seems to be so much inventory. But there's always, we'll come back to that on the other side. There's always a little bit of a rub between keeping the manufacturing process moving and what happens at the local dealerships. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back on the other side with my friend Jonathan Allen from J. Allen Automotive. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I'm so pleased to have my friend Jonathan Allen from J. Allen Automotive. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's been a long time since he and I visited. Before the pandemic, we visited a lot. During the pandemic, we visited a whole bunch because it was interesting to hear from his perspective how the auto industry was sort of dealing with the realities of the pandemic. But when we went to break, we were talking about sort of the differences between Ford now that he's bought the Butch Allen dealership. He also bought Butch Allen Mazda. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But, this kind of rub that exists between the manufacturing of the cars and, maybe building too many cars and then looking to you guys to put them on your lots. It's there's always going to be a little bit of that, isn't there?
Absolutely. We're the retail arm of the manufacturer. So, when they produce, they expect us to get it sold so they can produce some more. And, if something's wrong with a product or wrong with it's our job to speak up and be the voice of the consumer. So, yeah, we're the on the ground group. That's what we do.
So you got this big company in Ford, and then you have this smaller company in Mazda. And I would think, Mazda being a Japanese company, that it would be aligned better culturally with Toyota. What's been your experience?
Mazda is it's a nimble dealer network, a nimble group. There's not a whole lot of field staff, like I talked about with Ford having not enough, but a lot of dealers. There's not a big field staff, but there's not a huge dealer count. So they're able to respond and deal with our issues quicker. Mazda product is all imported. So most of it's coming from Japan. 99% of it's coming from Japan. So that's something you have to take into consideration. But one thing Mazda has done recently is partnered with Toyota Financial Services. So Mazda Financial Services is basically Toyota Financial Services. And that's another way that this deal was kind of pushed forward was when I found that out, and I went and talked to Butch. I actually just tried to buy the Mazda store in the beginning, and he said, if I'm going to sell them, I'll sell both of them. I was like, well, great. I was interested in that anyway a long time ago. So, but Mazda's really an up-and-coming brand. I mean, it's always been a good brand, and they build good cars, but I think they're one of the most misunderstood brands. And this is something that the Mazda people said to me in the very beginning. They said, we are a great car company that have been terrible marketers. And everybody can probably remember the Zoom commercials. Well, that's neat and all, but nobody knows what that means for a Mazda. And if you get in one, you can see that it's a nice car. It's a very nice car. I mean, it almost is on par with an Acura or an Infiniti. I won't put it quite in BMW or Mercedes territory or Lexus territory, but it really is something that the buying public is embracing as a new style than the Mazda of old.
Yeah.
So really, they're kind of spending themselves towards kind of a micro luxury manufacturer, and we like their direction.
So I knew, of course, I've known Butch and Larry Clark, who used to be with Butch for many, many years. Many years ago, actually, I called Larry and I said, "Look, my mom, God bless her, she passed away a couple of months ago. Wonderful woman." I said, I need to find a really dependable car for her. And she said, Larry said, you know what you need? You need to get a Mazda. And that's real life, Jonathan. His dog barking in the background. That's just real life. No problem at all. But I said, we need to get a really dependable car. And he said, you need a Mazda. And so we did. We bought a Mazda for Mom. And she had that car for many, many years. I mean, she had it up until the time she died. It was the most dependable car I have ever seen, man. We had to, we just serviced it, and that was it. It never
Yep.
missed a lick.
It's just those scenarios where, like, you change the oil and that's all it really needs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Keep the maintenance down.
So what kind of dog do you have?
A golden retriever, and he never barks either, but he's getting used to this new house, and somebody's at the door, and I'm not expecting anyone right now. So this is how, this is how this is supposed to happen.
That's okay. It's real life, man. It's definitely real life. So so after all these years of doing a Toyota dealership and building that brand, and then buying this iconic Ostelit brand in the Ford and Mazda stores, and then bringing it together and doing all the learning you have to do around that, it's been a great journey for you, though, hasn't it?
It's been an unreal journey, actually, and getting to expand our automotive brand just kind of really my mission was always to do it. So our team getting to see the work that we put in to proceed to make that happen, and then doing it, making it happen, and then us running through getting used to the Ford brand and having some Toyota people over in those, and they're indoctrinated into Ford and Mazda now, and we just really enjoy kind of expanding our footprint and doing our process with other brands, and we think that people are going to respond positively to it.
Hey, look, at the end of the day, if I were to say, okay, what business are you in? I'd be interested to see how you describe it, but at the core business. Well, you're in the marketing business, and of course you have All-Terrain Productions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second, but you're in the marketing business. You're in the banking business in a big, big way. And the product just happens to be a car, or a truck. But at the end of the day, man, if you're not successful from the banking perspective or from the marketing perspective, you don't have anything, do you?
That's right. That's right. You've got to be relevant in the public, and you've got to keep that message out there. And then you have to have a process of making the car purchase process easier for the customer, so they want to do business with you and come back and tell their friends. I mean, that's the whole mission. If it's any more complicated than that, we're doing it wrong. Yeah. So it's we just want to make the process simple. And you're right. There's a lot of touch points along there with people getting lending and people insuring and dealing with state agencies to get titles sent into the proper places so people can register their vehicles. I mean, we're working with a whole lot to put it all together so people can have their car and go about their business and just make it easy for them. That's the mission.
It's just so interesting to look. I think about the world that you guys are in, managing during the pandemic, big time challenges and adjusting and adapting. As an industry, you always have to pay attention to what's happening on the national level. In Mississippi, you got to pay attention to what the legislature is doing, because the most seemingly nothing bill could turn out to be something that could create real problems for you. So you got to pay attention to that. You guys have always done a good job with that. We'll talk about EVs here in just a second. Yeah. But in the midst of all of that, man, you go and buy restaurants and you get into the restaurant business. Again, if you want someone to do something, find a busy person to do it. But that's been, you've enjoyed that, haven't you?
I have. And I mean, and it's Triple Tails in Bay St. Louis and the Blowfly Bar and Grill in Gulfport. And I won't say I was seeking to be in the restaurant business. They kind of just happened in interesting ways because I had the right people at the right time. And when these opportunities came, I was able to say yes because of the people. It always comes back to the people and the team. And it's a different business. It's tough. And I feel for every restaurant owner out there, because I mean there are months that it's boom or bust, and I've learned that now. What's interesting today's Ash Wednesday. We opened Ash Wednesday last year, right after Mardi Gras. So today is it's because it's not the same day. It's not a year, but it was Ash Wednesday last year that we opened for the first time to the public. So yeah,
pretty amazing. We actually pre-recording the show for playing this week just because of Mardi Gras and all the adjustments we had to make as it relates to that. But as it relates to the Blowfly Inn, this iconic brand that had gone through some struggles and transitions and whatever.
Yep.
You went all in on that, didn't you?
Yeah. It was kind of I didn't. Everybody I talked to locally that had known the blowfly for a long time, they didn't want it to go away. Like I didn't want it to go away, but it also needed kind of a re-imaging and kind of a. So we renovated the building completely, and I think it's a beautiful space to be in and have a great meal, and I'm super happy with it. And we've got kind of a lot of direction we can run in for future promotions or future things. And then the bar downstairs is kind of a work in progress, and we've got ability to pull it by boat now, and the view is just fantastic, mostly year round. And it's just a great space. It really is.
Yeah. So there was some riffraff and some other stuff right there at the dock. You've got all that cleaned out now?
Oh yeah. We had it dredged, and we had a channel put in that's it. It's 7 feet deep. So in most boats, I mean, I don't know any boat that wouldn't be able to get in that. But it was, 2 and 3 feet in certain areas with who knows what up under there. And we dredged that area, and we can park 4 to 6 boats, depending on their sizes, of course. But we can park 4 to 6 boats, and they can come in and have a good meal.
Yeah, we live on the water, so it's we enjoy, I mean, we do it on the spur of the moment. You want to just go eat on the water tonight? Yeah, and we'll just hop in the boat and go.
It's great,
and it's great to have that access. I mean, that's actually a growing part of coastal Mississippi, the ability to go to lots of different opportunities to eat on the water, and people like that. I mean, it's just kind of becoming part of the culture of coastal Mississippi, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're basically all driving around Back Bay in a way. I mean, if we can get to places as through Back Bay by water, I mean, that just adds a whole other dimension to our coast. It's awesome.
Hey, listen, when we come back on the other side, I want to talk to Jonathan about EVs. We've been pushing. Listen, there needs to be an orderly transition to renewables. Let's put it that way. But boy, is it going to be a rough road ahead if we don't be smart about how we make that transition. We're going to talk to Jonathan about that on the other side. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend Jonathan Allen from J. Allen Automotive, this expanding company, this diversified company. And listen, I had the opportunity on a pretty regular basis to visit with a young man in his 30s running. He's a CEO of Golding Barge Line in Vicksburg, but they do petrochemical products and other chemical products in all the inland waterways of America. He's in such a great position to see all these raw products and these petroleum products at various stages, including he transports gasoline and diesel finished products. And so he can talk about sort of the global thing and how it fits into America. What he says about this administration is that we've not been smart about being realistic about our energy policy, and in fact says we need to invest in at least a couple of more refineries. That gasoline as we know it's going to be around for many, many more years, and there's no doubting, and the energy companies understand this as well, that renewables are going to be part of it. Will renewables replace it? Most people don't think that actually is anywhere in the future that we can even see. But to press it the way we press it, to move to AEV before manufacturers and others, and supporting battery technology and everything else supports it. It's just been we're trying to move too fast, aren't we, Jonathan?
Absolutely. I mean, and the legislation. Well, it's not even legislation. That's the part that really gets under my crawl. Is these congressmen did not vote on this stuff. The Senate, this did not flow through. This was executive orders from the White House to satisfy a crowd that's not our voting politicians that we put in office to make these kinds of decisions. And this mandate that all motor vehicles need to be electric vehicles by 2032, or 70% need to be electric by 2032, is preposterous. I mean, it's gonna hurt American manufacturing, and it's just not free enterprise business where the highest and best use of the resources that we currently have evolve over time to get to where we want to be. And you said it right. We could be an EV world one day. We're just not ready for it now. And to force it is to actually disrupt the North American automotive market, which is a whole lot of dealers. It's a whole lot of customers. It's a whole lot of everything by just putting this arbitrary 70% out there. And it just will not work. And in an inadvertent way, it's going to turn if this doesn't change, our automotive market will be in effect handed to China. China.
Hey, listen, my sense is, Jonathan, that we will see changes in November. That's what my sense is. But here's the reality. Whether we have Democratic or Republican administration, we need an administration that really embodies the reality of where we are, because not only, we're a lot of the conversations are around EV and what's happening with electric vehicles and the constantly changing and innovation around the batteries, et cetera. All that's happening, but also happening simultaneous to that is that the engines themselves, the cars, the non-EV vehicles are getting much better. The innovation's happening there to reduce emissions, and we're not really giving much credit to that, are we?
No. There's a better way, and Toyota puts out this this kind of informational thing that I'm allowed to share now. That'll start showing up on my Facebook. Actually, it's on my Facebook page now. A couple of posts down, but there's a better way than just trying to say all EV all the way. There's a whole lot more. I mean, there's hybrid electric, which is a perfect, better use of the current resource we have, and then there's plug-in hybrid. That is really the best option, because the biggest problem with EVs is they're way too expensive in the first place, and most people can't afford them. The range anxiety, where people are feared that they're going to get stuck. Well, look, if you can run on electric as long as you want, but then you can get home if you need to, because that gas engine's there too. I think that's the highest and best use. But that one, according to the federal government, is not the plan. It has to be full battery. And I want to say a stat here, because this is something that needs to be said when it comes to materials and mining and what it takes to produce these cars. To produce one EV vehicle, you could produce 9 plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. You could produce over 60 hybrid vehicles for the same amount of materials it takes to make one EV battery. That means we're putting so much resources into cars. And right now, the market share of EVs across the country is 7%. If you take California out of the equation, it's less than 4%. And Mississippi, it's less than 1%. And when we have electric vehicles on the lot that people aren't buying, I mean, the prices are, it's just not free market capitalism, and we're forced to hold these things, and it's just going to cost us all.
It is it's a big challenge. I talk about this all the time, because this show actually on Thursdays rolled out to Jackson and the Delta market, and we'll be adding more days and more markets as we go forward. And on my outdoor show, which I also goes across the whole state, I talk about the reality that 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas. And whether you're seeking health care or going to a job or whatever it might be, EV ain't gonna work for you, most likely. It's just not gonna work. That's just the reality. My sister has a hybrid car, and that seems like sort of the perfect transition. That actually, it seems like that would be a great transition for the next 20 plus years as we move, to better technology and all that. It just seems right. The fact that they wouldn't, the current administration wouldn't support a hybrid, that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
It's almost insane. I mean, at least plug-in hybrids. But I mean, Toyota's been retailing hybrids in the United States since 2001. And it's not like this is new technology. I'm still amazed when I have anybody that goes, I'm still shaky on these hybrids. You don't need to be shaky on hybrids anymore. They're good. All the manufacturers have hybrid figured out. But this EV thing, this is something that we're not all ready for in ways that we haven't even considered yet, and it's being forced on us. And we're all going to have. There's not enough plug-in stations. There's not enough infrastructure. There's not enough on the power grid, and nobody's taking this stuff into consideration. If everybody on my block here had an EV, our houses wouldn't be able to be powered. That's the interesting part that nobody's talking about. And what happens when people live in apartments and they might have a bank of 8 chargers, but supposedly there's going to be 70% in that parking lot that are electric. We just can't even support this stuff right now. We can't even get there by 2032 to have 70% of the cars on the road being that. It just is a mandate that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
Hey, listen, of course, coming back to my CEO days, it ain't bad to have a big, hairy, audacious goal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when a goal becomes an unrealistic mandate, that's a whole other ballgame. And what's interesting is to have an audacious goal, the industry would then come together, meet with I would say it would not just be the automotive industry, but it would also be the energy sector as well. And anyone who's engaged in that in any way, Austin Golding Company, Golding Barge Line being part of that, because all these ancillary companies are impacted by these decisions. You would think that there would be this massive coming together to say, okay, this is a noble goal. This is an audacious goal, but it can't be a mandate, and here's why. It's not realistic. Yes. But what can we do? What does a reasonable energy policy for America look like? How can we lead the world in this regard? Here's how we do that. That seems like it would be just a no-brainer to do that. Why can't that happen?
Because it makes too much sense, Ricky. There's just not. We have to. I don't know. I don't want to assume, but there's other forces being pulling strings here that's being forced through our government, and our government is obliging to a group of people that's not the common public, and forcing stuff on us that I think there's a bigger thing at play here, and it's just using the environment as ways to flip our whole thing, and it's going to affect our economy negatively, and our North American automotive market, if this doesn't change, is in some big trouble. Because it's just going to put all the automotive manufacturers under the thumb.
It's going to. I predict it will change because there's a powerful lubrication to change that comes from pain, and you can't have this much pain in local dealerships around the country, and then you get to the regional part that you and I were talking about, and then to the national part that you and I were talking about. The whole dynamic about the car business internationally is impacted by such a mandate, an unrealistic mandate, that the pain that comes from the pending mandate that's out there is going to force this to change. Now, look, we all know that no matter who the Republican candidate is, if a Republican gets in there, then we're going to get realistic about our energy policy. There's just no doubt about it. And that's not just being favoring energy. That's not what this is about. Being realistic about what a transition plan should look like as America works and moves closer toward being not only energy independent, but also in a position where we can do renewables in a way that are doable, and we can live with those, and it's not impacting the economy. That's for sure, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we can't continue on the current path and produce good results.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, when we come back in the final segment, I want to actually ask Jonathan about new technology that might be coming out on cars, and everything's changing. Even the hybrid cars now look. If you look on the inside, even some of the gasoline cars, they look like EV cars now on the inside. The use of technology and all that, it's just so cool. We'll talk to him more about that for the final segment. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have my friend Jonathan Allen from J. Allen Automotive. When we went to break, we're talking about EVs and the energy policy and mandates that are on the horizon. They're going to be incredibly difficult in fact, we're not going to be able to meet those mandates. 70% EV, it's just not doable for a very, very, very long time. But you made a comment, actually, while you were talking about that. I want to come back to this because this is really important. I pay a lot of attention every morning reading about the geopolitical situation, and we think in terms of Russia and Ukraine and what's happening in Israel and all of that. But the clear and present danger that continues to be front and center for everyone is the Chinese. And it's interesting. When during the pandemic, we learned that a lot of our prescription drugs come from China. We learned about chip industry, what that's all about. We let the globalists in our world move us to a situation where manufacturing was closed in America and open in China at much lesser wages, and we've been driving to as low cost as we possibly can, creating this sort of global economy that during the pandemic we learned about our vulnerabilities. And what we shouldn't lose sight of as well is that in this whole dynamic that you were just talking about, and you said we don't want the auto market to become a Chinese market. That is actually incredibly possible, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll say the stats that I just said, and the numbers might not be completely correct, but I'm just going to put it in proportions. If we have one battery manufacturing facility in the United States, China has 10, which means if we have 20, they have 200. Their Chinese manufacturers that are opening up left and right are producing all electric vehicles. And I have received more information about potential Chinese manufacturer dealerships coming to the U.S. in the last few months than I ever have. But who's going to open up these dealerships? I mean, ultimately, if this mandate doesn't change, we're going to effectively hand our automotive market to China. And that's not good for the consumer. It's not good for America, and it's not good for American manufacturing, and it's not good for all the brands that are already here and been, abiding by the rules and regulations of the federal government of America for decades and decades and decades. And to put this unfair mandate on the current manufacturers, knowing that our biggest competitor on the planet has a stranglehold on this stuff. It makes you wonder what's really going on here. And is the mission to crash the North American car market? Because that could potentially happen if this mandate doesn't change.
Hey, when you think about, Tesla, you think about American manufacturers, even Toyota, because Toyota has had an innovative reputation for a lot of years. When you kind of and there are others, obviously we can mention all the others, but we don't have time to do that. You ball them up and you say, okay, look at the innovation coming out of these companies, and then you look at a Chinese company. Does the innovation match up?
I haven't spent it. We don't have any way to spend any time around these cars, but I have to make a just broad assumption. I'm going to say a hard no, because they just do not have the quality control things that we do in America to make sure that the products we're getting to the end consumer are a good product. And that's what America, I think, does right in a lot of ways. And then enforces stuff where people take shortcuts and it affects the consumer in a negative way. And I mean, that's what recalls are all for when a car's got something wrong. Well, China doesn't play by these rules when they manufacture. And if they're detached from the fixing it process after the fact, that's just a nightmare for all of us. It's a nightmare for the consumer. It's a nightmare. And, I don't want to assume anything, but China material and China production doesn't exactly produce the highest quality things. So let's just put it that way.
Hey, speaking of innovation, for the last couple of minutes that we have, there's some cool innovation coming down on cars today. I mean, you think about a Tesla and what it looked like, and now you see most of the manufacturers have that same kind of look using all these digital capabilities and touch screens and all that. It's amazing, just in the last 3 or 4 years, the massive amount of interior innovation that's happened in these automobiles, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, especially with the self-driving stuff. And I mean, this is not a perfect science. This is actually perfect case in point as to why this hybrids and battery, because it needs to slowly happen and to the right direction. I've seen, a Tesla test track that had no drivers in the cars, and it was moving, and one went wrong and they all crashed into each other. So this technology is great, but it's not ready yet. It's not 100% ready yet. But the cars are getting all of these unique, cool things that changes the way we travel. But it's got to happen at a steady pace where we don't just throw it out there and then we all end up in those cars and then we're all wrecked together. And just because we try to turn over to technology and just give it all the control. I also see some manufacturers leaning a little bit, going back towards more simple, and we'll see what that does. We'll see if that actually drops prices too. But,
that self-driving, I'm very skeptical about it. But the cars that we have more recently, what I like about that feature is that it's a very significant safety feature, because if you do sort of begin to drift, it's helping you realize that you better get straight again. It's probably that part actually saving some lives. That's what I'm thinking.
I don't doubt that. But some people will lean in too far to it and let it do the driving, and they shouldn't.
Yeah, you could just let go of the steering wheel, and to me that's scary. But it literally will drive itself. Hey, listen, Jonathan Allen, it's been great to catch up with you. We will not wait over a year before we get back together again.
Always a pleasure, Ricky. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy being on your show.
You bet, my friend. You bet, This has been Jonathan Allen from J. Allen Automotive. Great conversation. I really enjoyed kind of covering the waterfront with him today. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Take care.